Another video. It is still the 25th of July. It's about 7 o'clock in the evening. Came back from hospital an hour ago having chemotherapy. I just thought I would bore you really with stuff I've been doing and stuff I've been thinking about. So one thing I've been doing, which has been very positive, is I've decided to help out the clinic where I have my immunotherapy. So what I'm doing is very basic. I'm just writing stuff for their patients in English because there are a lot of patients from other countries, and what I want to do is, or what I am doing is making kind of one-page guides to various treatments that the clinic offers, so that they could be on the website or given to the patients and their families. The idea being that the guides would take some of the workload off the oncologist there, so that when someone is sort of comes for an appointment, while they're sat in the waiting room, they can be reading one of these guides, and they can be getting informed about what the treatment involves, that kind of thing, so that when they're talking to the oncologist, they're asking very specific questions about their case, not general questions about how does this type of immunotherapy work or that kind of thing. So I started writing some of these, and I've given them to my immunotherapist, and he's been sort of checking through them and suggesting changes and stuff. So kind of working on it together. So that's been very rewarding for me, which is what counts. But I think it's going to make a big difference, and a couple of friends of mine have very kindly said they'll help me sort out a website in English for the clinic as well, because at the moment they've only got a Japanese site. And then another kind of bigger project I'm working on is helping the nurses with their English. So again, I'm writing guides, English vocabulary and phrases and things that the nurses can use for talking to people who don't speak Japanese. Now, it's actually quite hard to write the English because writing for native speakers is fine, but people reading this kind of thing, or the people that the nurses are talking to, their first language may be Mandarin Chinese or Tagalog or Thai or Urdu or whatever. So things have to be kind of super clear. Also, I'm trying desperately to avoid medical terms. Visiting hospitals in Japan, I've noticed things like some of the signs in English are things that a native speaker, even a native speaker English, might not understand, like ontology or whatever, instead of saying ear, nose and throat clinic. Or like, even something like ophthalmology instead of eye doctor. It's just pointless to have, use the kind of medical terms. And I'm working really hard trying to write stuff that is absolutely crystal clear, stuff that preempts the patient's questions, because there's no point in writing these kind of guides or whatever, and then the patient just asks more and more questions to the nurse or doctor. So I'm working on the stuff for the nurses, things like how to ask about patient symptoms, how to ask about patient history, how to explain about the treatment that's been prescribed. Because often you have a situation where the doctor prescribes some treatment, and if the if the person's having a treatment in hospital, it's then the nurse who's taking care of the patient and kind of needs to go over again when to take the pills, how to apply the cream or the ointment, what order to do stuff in, that kind of thing, how to take care of the medicine. It might be stuff that needs to be kept refrigerated or even kept in the freezer. I've had this medicine called conditioned medium, consisting of bioactive molecules, and it needs to be kept in the freezer, and there's like a whole procedure of dealing with it. So at the moment I'm doing kind of written guides for the nurses, but I'm going to do some audio stuff, some video stuff, maybe make a website, maybe run some in-person training as well. So I'll probably crowdfund that. So if you see me begging for money for nurses, that's what it's about. So that's really positive. Other even more boring stuff. I've started a book group recently for reading non-fiction books. So reading one book a month and meeting to discuss it. So I've had the first one of those, went really well. Read a very good book called We Do Things Differently by Mark Stevenson. Now we're reading Scale by the physicist Geoffrey West, which is also a very good book. What else have I been doing? Spending lots of time with the kids, obviously. Recently watched the film Watership Down with my kids. Was very, very good. Hadn't seen it since I was a child, but it's a fantastic animated film. It's so much better than that crap that Disney puts out. The Disney stuff is an embarrassment, quite frankly. And Watership Down is a really, really, really great film. A lot of depth, incredible animation. Really, really wonderful. If you have kids, sit them down and watch Watership Down with them. That is my movie recommendation of the month. Book recommendation, if you've got kids, maybe 8 to even up to 11 years old, maybe. I'm reading with my son Edward, reading the Gillian Cross series of books called The Demon Headmaster. Very, very, very good. Really, really worth reading. And we're still also reading the Indian in the Cupboard books, of which there are 5, and we're on number 4. Again, Indian Cupboard, probably some of the best children's books ever written. Much, much better than Roald Dahl. Rereading a lot of the Roald Dahl stuff recently with my son. It's okay, but it's not great. I know Roald Dahl is like a national treasure in England, but there are much, much better books for kids, and Indian in the Cupboard books are some of those. Far more imagination, far more depth. One of the few things I passionately believe is that kids are so much smarter than adults give them credit for. Kids are born genius, and then as adults we basically fuck them up. And the worst thing we do is send them to school, where they're trained to be stupid. They're kind of grown in glass cages, and it's a disgusting waste of that incredible potential. I'm trying very, very hard with my kids to minimize the damage I do to them, and hopefully have a positive influence on them to some extent. Kind of a related point, I guess, is, again, this is going to be very dull for many of you to hear, but I've noticed that so many people just lack a strong worldview, or they have a kind of passive worldview just made out of the grey sludge that they eat and drink via the media. I teach a very profound worldview to my kids. I teach them that most people are essentially crooks or idiots, and that our job is to find people who are not crooks and not idiots and get those people in our lives, help those people, take care of those people. And that sounds like a simplistic way of looking at the world, but I'd argue that it's very, very accurate. It's not a judgmental view at all. It really isn't. I don't say it in a judgmental way, and I teach my kids that it's not a judgmental thing. People are idiots and people are crooks for various reasons, and it's not necessary or useful to judge them. It's about finding the few people who don't fit clearly into those two categories, or I guess three categories, because there's an overlap as well, isn't there, of people who are both crooks and idiots. In fact, one might argue that all crooks are by definition idiots, because they're living a pretty pathetic life. So just by teaching that worldview to my kids, I think it's very it's a very major step along the path to producing kind of healthy humans, really. And was it Krishnamurti said something like, it's no mark of good health to be well adjusted to a sick society. I think there's a lot of truth in that. I teach my kids that they're not really part of the rest of the world. That, they're not. It's not about surviving. It's about prevailing. To borrow the terminology from the presumably deeply unpleasant Jeff Cooper, the guy who came up with the color codes. Code white, code yellow, code orange, code red, the situational awareness codes. I imagine he's a very unpleasant person, but he did say that we're here to prevail, not to survive. I teach my kids that they should take care of themselves so that they're more able to help others. So I think life is really about taking care of yourself and your immediate family, friends, whatever, helping others, and learning as much as you humanly possibly can about the nature of the universe, the nature of our existence, the kind of the awesome world in which we found ourselves, the awesome universe in which we're situated, I hope that other people will, get a useful worldview. I think my worldview is useful even if it's wrong. And to a massive extent, it probably is wrong, because most of what we think is wrong. But if we think things that are engineered such that, although they're wrong, they're still useful, that's a very powerful way to live. It's a very useful way to live. An obvious thing is just teaching our kids to be very, very skeptical and very, very questioning Now, skepticism and questioning has a cost, and that cost is kind of time. It slows stuff down if we're questioning a lot of stuff. But if we're able to question stuff we're exposed to and question our own thoughts and our own thought processes, that's a very robust and safe way to live, because no matter how wrong we are, if we're questioning, we get a chance to fix it. We're not just going on autopilot. So if you have kids, please feel free to teach them the Karamoon worldview that most people are crooks or idiots, and we should find the people who aren't, and we should keep them in our lives. Anything else I can bore you with? Obviously, thinking about tech stuff every single second of every single day. Thinking a lot about the Smalltalk language at the moment, and also Lisp. Haven't thought about Eiffel for quite a while, but I'm going to go and reread my copy of Object-Oriented Software Construction at some point by Bertrand Meyer, which is basically the design document for Eiffel. So think about that kind of stuff, but in a wider point that maybe is more interesting to you if you're not familiar with programming languages or not interested in tech stuff, is one of the few very smart things that Marshall McLuhan said is that we shape our tools, but at a certain point they shape us. And that's really, really important to understand. And tools, we'd obviously now include kind of media channels, all the social media stuff. Social media is, a good way to think of social media is like you go outside your house and you get a big chunk of piping and you connect a pipe from the sewer. So it's spraying continually in your house. Because that's what a lot of social media is. It's essentially raw sewage coming into your brain. You need to think about that quite a lot. But also just thinking about the tools that we use every day to get stuff done. How does it shape us after a while? How does it limit us? How does it hopefully enable us to do things we can't usually do? Okay, so enough deep stuff. Thank you for listening as always. Thank you for keeping me alive with those donations. They make a huge, huge, huge difference. Every donation makes a huge difference. Most donations that come in result in other donations coming in pretty quickly. So that's fantastic. So my donation link is www.matthewdons.org. That's MATTHEWDONS.org. Thanks a lot.